Hey guys, welcome back to another Fan Art Fan Fiction Friday. I know last week's wasn't received as well as I was hoping, but I want to keep at it, keep trying. Who knows, maybe some word of mouth will get out. People will keep enjoying it. But in the meantime, I made a commitment and I want to follow through on it. So, this week I'm doing Chapter 2, and I hope everyone enjoyed it last week. I'm quite far behind, so I need to get with it and just draw my heart out. Unfortunately, look at my pencil. This is my main pencil, like my number 2 pencil. I'm going to need another one of these. Look how short it is. It's like the length of my index finger. It's very small. But with that being said, we need to get started. So let's do this. Star Wars fan fiction. The Reason. Chapter 2. Wounded Warrior. The Republic gunship made a hard left, forcing its occupants to take a tighter hold on the cargo straps. All 4 Jedi Masters were frowning. Their mood was one of urgency and unease. Mace Windu, Aegon Kolar, Kit Fisto, and Saesee Tiin had received word a short time ago that Obi-Wan Kenobi, on assignment on the planet Utapau, had finally managed to destroy General Grievous. Without a leader, the droid armies could soon be defeated. The Jedi Masters had agreed to travel to the Senate to be sure Chancellor Palpatine would give up his overreaching political powers. No sooner had the party left than a great disturbance in the Force caught each one of them off guard. It was as though, after a barrage of pain and suffering somewhere near, a curtain had been lifted, and everything could be seen with crystal clarity. What followed was another intense feeling of agony, betrayal, and utter despair. It was a shock, and enough to cause great concern. Something had happened to disrupt the inner workings of the Force itself. No one had any specifics yet, but all agreed that Anakin was somehow involved. He had yet to return from the Chancellor's office. It was with this sense of urgency that the Masters arrived at the Senate building. They ordered the clone troopers to stay put and entered at a jog, hands ready at saber hilts, expecting trouble. The nearer they got, the stronger those negative emotions were. As they rounded the final corner before reaching Palpatine's office, Windu flinched at what the Force was telling him. Anakin was there, alone and badly wounded. As the party came to the doorway, all 4 of them skidded to a stop to take in the scene. The office was nothing short of a disaster. Broken furniture littered the floor. Burn marks from lightsabers decorated carpet, walls, and wreckage. Odors of ozone and burned flesh mingled and gave the room a stench of death. Worst of all, Anakin Skywalker lay in a heap, his severed right leg lying about a meter away. The mutilated body of Palpatine lay at the opposite end of the room. Anakin was moaning as he lifted his head, conflicted emotions broadcasting like a beacon. "Master?" All 4 Jedi deactivated their blades and ran into the room. Aegon Kolar went to check Palpatine, while Mace made straight for Anakin. Kit Fisto and Saesee Tiin stood guard at the doorway to prevent further trouble. Mace crouched beside the young man with a grimace, looking from stump to severed leg. They were going to have to work fast if Anakin's leg was going to be saved. He ripped a comm from his belt and thumbed it on. "Commander, contact the temple. Have a full team of healers meet us there. And get a medikit in here. Now!" When the startled clone acknowledged the order, Mace took a deep breath, letting the Force wash over him. The younger Jedi seemed on the verge of panic. "Breathe, Anakin." "Mr. Windu, forgive me. Forgive me." Anakin hung his head. The pain in his leg was nothing compared to the pain in his spirit. "Calm down," Mace ordered, firmly gripping Anakin's shoulder. "Fear isn't going to help you." Anakin shut his eyes, trying to shut off his emotions, but they wouldn't go away. The harder he fought, the stronger they became. When Aegon Kolar confirmed Palpatine was dead from a lightsaber, his heart pounded and he began to hyperventilate. Mace frowned. Anakin was doing the exact opposite of what his training had drilled into him. "Easy. Easy." Anakin trembled violently, still fighting with himself. He pressed a fist to his forehead in frustration. "This isn't helping," Mace thought with a deepening frown. Anakin's risk of going into shock rose at an alarming rate. Perhaps the gentle approach was better. "Anakin. Anakin," he said, letting the Force rise protectively around them. "Remember your training. Breathe. Almost without thinking, Anakin obeyed, taking deep, choppy breaths even as tears filled his eyes. His heart rate slowed, and he let out a shudder. "That's better," nodded Mace. "Now what happened?" He... Anakin's eyes narrowed. "He was a Sith." "A what?" Mace's eyes widened, and he exchanged disturbed looks with the others. "Are you sure? How can you know this?" "He knew the dark side. He controlled the Senate," Anakin cried out when Mace took a closer look at his leg. The older Jedi took Anakin's shoulder even as his stomach dropped. "Easy," he said again. So it was Palpatine all along. Mace had suspected, though the reality of it was still hard to digest. A Sith in control of the Senate would explain quite a bit. "So you confronted him? Alone?" Anakin nodded, face twisted into a grimace. He defeated a Sith Lord by himself. How is it even possible? Mace shook his head in amazement. The only other Jedi he knew of that had faced down a Sith Lord completely alone, and come out alive, was Yoda. Even Obi-Wan had fought alongside Qui-Gon against Darth Maul. Admiration flooded the Jedi Master. Still, Mace had to offer light correction. "Why didn't you tell us? We could have helped you." Anakin shook his head, eyes closing. "I'm sorry, Master. I'm sorry." Remorse choked him. "Forgive me." A reserved look of pride rose on Mace's face. He regarded Anakin with newfound respect and looked him in the eye. "Anakin, there's nothing to forgive. If anything, we should be thanking you. Once more, the Sith have been defeated." He noticed Anakin's teeth chattering and shrugged off his robe to drape over the young man. "Rest. As soon as the clones get here, we're going to take you straight to the healers." What's going to happen?" Anakin sputtered. "The Senate. The Republic." Mace pressed his lips together. Even with the Sith Lord dead, the Republic was now without a leader. Most had been supportive of Palpatine. This was not going to be easy to resolve. "You let us worry about that." Sensing the approach of others, he lifted his head and was gratified to see a handful of clones rushing in with a medical kit and stretcher. He turned back to Anakin with an encouraging squeeze on his shoulder. "Hold on. You're going to be all right." Obi-Wan Kenobi's arrival on Coruscant was greeted with enthusiasm. The Jedi was guarded in acknowledging the praise, but knew something unusual was going on by the buzz of unexpected activity in the temple. Every other person he came across seemed to hover somewhere between shock and confusion. Then someone told him the news. Palpatine had been the Sith Lord in control of the Senate. Anakin confronted and killed him, and lost his leg in the process. No sooner did Obi-Wan hear this than he headed straight for the infirmary. The Jedi Temple's infirmary was no stranger to serious injuries. The life of a Jedi was fraught with peril when one left the safety of Coruscant behind. Most Jedi found life and limb threatened several times over the course of their lives. These dangers had only multiplied since the beginning of the Clone Wars. While the need for field medics had increased, the temple itself had also cultivated a larger number of healers and other medical staff. Facilities within its walls were among the best in the galaxy. A Jedi healer at the entrance by name of Fen Rena flinched upon seeing Obi-Wan pound up the hall. "Master Kenobi!" Obi-Wan skidded to a breathless stop in front of her. "Fen, I heard Anakin was injured." Fen nodded, grimacing. "Yes, he was brought in yesterday evening and went directly into surgery." Obi-Wan winced, guessing the surgery was to reattach Anakin's leg. Such a thing was preferred if a severed limb could be salvaged. "How did it go?" he asked hopefully. "It was successful. He'll be keeping his leg at least." The Jedi sighed heavily in relief. "Thank the Force. Will he be able to walk?" Fen gave a cautious nod. "He should. It was a clean amputation. From anything the others have said, however, Anakin isn't doing very well. You'd have to ask the healers in charge for more details." Obi-Wan's worry arose. Anakin was one of the strongest people he had ever met and usually bounced back quickly from injuries. For Anakin to not be doing well was a point of major concern. "Where might I find him?" "Level 3, East Corridor, Recovery Room 12, said Fen promptly. "Thank you very much, Fen." Obi-Wan bowed to her before hurrying off to see his former apprentice, his friend, his family. Much as he would have denied it, Obi-Wan was guilty of forming attachments. He loved Anakin like a brother. The thought of the young man's injury made his heart ache. Anakin's room was easy to find. Two healers crowded at the entry with Mace Windu, who stood watching with crossed arms and a concerned frown. He looked up upon sensing Obi-Wan's approach and managed a guarded smile.
"Welcome back, Obi-Wan. Congratulations on the defeat of General Grievous."
The smile faded.
"I expect you've heard about the Chancellor."
"Master Windu." Obi-Wan bowed in deference to the older Jedi and slowly shook his head.
"Palpatine, I can't believe we've been so blind."
He glanced at the crowded doorway.
"How's Anakin?"
Mace knit his brows.
"The healers have reattached his leg. Physically, he's going to be all right. What worries me is his mental state."
Obi-Wan felt his stomach twist.
"How so, Master?"
Mace pressed his lips together.
"It seems the death of Palpatine is affecting him more than I expected. He was almost incoherent on the way back to the temple. Since the surgery, no one can get a word out of him. He won't even eat."
"Perhaps he was closer to Palpatine than we suspected," said Obi-Wan quietly.
"It must have been difficult for him to discover the truth. All I know is his injuries weren't severe enough to explain the state he's in." "Perhaps I can speak with him." "Good idea."
Mace nodded.
"The Council is assembling in 10 minutes. Will you be there?"
"Of course, Master."
"May the Force be with you, Obi-Wan."
"May it be with you also, Master." Obi-Wan bowed once more before turning to the door. Upon getting the go-ahead from the healers, he walked in and stopped in his tracks. Anakin lay motionless on a cot, clad in a basic short-sleeved tunic and trousers, his right leg heavily bandaged and in a brace from mid-thigh to mid-calf. It was elevated on a small pile of rolled blankets. His head and chest were propped up at about a 45-degree angle with a collection of pillows. His eyes red from fatigue and tears, his long hair tangled and falling into his eyes, Anakin was the picture of exhaustion. Most disturbing of all was the expression on his face. It was one of agony and complete despair, as if he had simply given up. A tray of uneaten food sat on his left, where a medic was trying to convince him to partake. Anakin ignored him. Finally the medic sighed and rose from his seat, shaking his head.
"He hasn't eaten since about yesterday morning. He won't even take any water. If this continues, we'll have to put him on intravenous fluids or he'll be severely dehydrated."
Obi-Wan felt his throat ache at seeing his friend in such a state.
"Anakin, what's happened to you?" "I'll speak with him."
He rested a brief hand on the medic's shoulder before entering the room.
"Anakin?"
Anakin didn't stir. He kept staring into empty space without even acknowledging Obi-Wan's presence.
"Anakin? Are you there?"
Obi-Wan sighed at getting no response and approached at a slow walk. He tried meeting Anakin's eyes and met only a pair of glazed blue orbs. Worried, Obi-Wan stopped by Anakin's side and gently took his shoulder.
"Anakin, look at me,"
he urged, trying to turn the young man's face. Anakin flinched and pulled back as if he had been stung. Slow recognition rose on his face.
"Obi-Wan?"
His eyes misted. Obi-Wan nodded.
"It's all right. It's me."
Anakin sank into the pillows with a shudder. He blinked as tears began filling his eyes.
"I killed him. I killed the Chancellor."
He looked away in shame. Obi-Wan gripped his friend's shoulder.
"I know. I heard. You've nothing to be ashamed of. You did the right thing."
"Did I?" Anakin's expression was one of utter misery. Several tears fell on his tunic.
"Anakin, I know this must be difficult for you. He was your friend, but he was a Sith Lord in control of the Senate. He was too dangerous to be left alive."
He gave the shoulder a squeeze.
"It's going to be all right."
"No, it's not. How can you say that?" snapped Anakin with a glare.
"What are you talking about?"
She's going to die," he choked, covering his eyes with his hand.
"Who? Who's going to die?"
asked Obi-Wan in sudden confusion. Anakin froze, fear and guilt rising on his face. He seemed to realize he had said too much and looked away. What's he hiding?
"Anakin, who is going to die?"
Obi-Wan wanted to know. Anakin shook his head, more tears rolling down his cheeks. Clearly, he didn't want to tell. Obi-Wan pressed his lips together in concern.
"If someone is in danger, you must tell us. Perhaps we can help."
Again the young man shook his head. For a long while he was silent. When he spoke, it was a bare whisper. "Padme." "Of course." Obi-Wan nodded. He knew how close the two of them were.
"All right. Why are you so convinced Senator Amidala is in danger?" Anakin swallowed. I keep dreaming, having nightmares, visions that she's going to die. The same thing happened with my mother, he added, seeing Obi-Wan didn't believe him. The older Jedi raised an eyebrow. I realize that, and I am sorry about your mother, but this is hardly the same. Upon seeing the look of guilt rise, Obi-Wan frowned. Anakin, what are you not telling me? She's my wife. Obi-Wan's jaw went slack, and for a moment he couldn't reply. A feeling of deep disappointment rose at the news. You married Senator Amidala? Anakin nodded. Now that the truth was out, he embraced it. Yes, so don't say this is different. She is my family now. Obi-Wan pressed his lips together and he crossed his arms. Somehow it wasn't a surprise, and it would explain quite a bit. But the code was clear. He sighed. You know such a thing is forbidden by the Jedi Order. His tone was quiet. How long have you been married? 3 years. You've been lying and keeping this a secret for that long? Don't lecture me, Obi-Wan. We're adults and responsible for our own actions. I love her, and I don't care who knows. I can't lose her. This is exactly why attachments are forbidden. Anger overtook Anakin's face. I don't care! Bitterly he shook his head. You don't understand. Obi-Wan untied his arms in a helpless gesture and turned away, stewing and trying to calm down. He shouldn't have done that. And Padme, she should know better. But there's no help for it now. His shoulders drooped. He was disappointed in Anakin, but anger would not undo the past, nor would it help his friend recover. Finally, he turned around. You know what this means. Anakin nodded, still agitated. I know, but it doesn't matter now. I can't keep this vision from coming true. He choked again and turned away. Obi-Wan sat down beside him, troubled. He brought this on himself, his stoic Jedi side reminded, but his humanity and compassion for his friend won out. All right, if you are so convinced you are going to lose Padme, will you tell me what your dreams involve? Anakin took in a deep breath and let it out, shuddering. She dies in childbirth. Somehow speaking the truth of this was more difficult than admitting they were married. Another round of shock rendered Obi-Wan mute. He had to close his eyes and take several deep breaths to calm down. If they've been married 3 years, it was bound to happen sooner or later. His tone was weary when he spoke again. She's pregnant. Anakin nodded, barely looking at his friend. Once again the older Jedi let out a heavy sigh, closing his eyes and sliding his hand down his face until it came to rest over his mouth. He was so torn that he didn't know what to think. At least now he could understand why Anakin was so fiercely protective of Padme and so desperate not to lose her. If Anakin, by some fluke, chose the Jedi over his wife, that would essentially leave his child without a father. But then if Anakin left the Jedi Order, he would be without guidance to help deal with his incredible power and volatile emotions. That could lead to disaster. Besides, he had saved the Republic by killing the Sith Lord. Obi-Wan turned to his friend wearily. That does complicate things. How long have you known? I didn't find out until we returned from the Outer Rim sieges. Anakin's tone was tired but defensive. Obi-Wan was quiet, almost apologetic. The Council must be told. Anakin nodded, almost beyond the point of caring. If you want to tell them, go ahead. It doesn't matter anymore. He closed his eyes and lay back against the pillows. Obi-Wan shook his head yet again. As you have said, you are an adult and responsible for your own actions. I'll leave that to you. He rose and turned to leave without another word. Okay guys, so that's been the second chapter of The Reason. That's all for today. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you want to see more G-rated Star Wars content, although, to be fair, this fan fiction is not particularly G-rated, some parts are rather intense. Use your own discretion when showing this video to younger fans. Anyway, if you want to see more of this kind of content, go ahead and click that little subscription button down below, and don't forget to check out the links in the description box. Question of the day, as always, related to the story. What do you think the Jedi Council's reaction is going to be to finding out their hero has broken the Jedi Code? Do you think they're going to let him off easy? Do you think they're going to come down hard? What do you think they're going to do? How do you think they're going to react? Go ahead and post a comment. So I'll see everybody again next week. Again, apologies that these are coming out rather late.
But my poor doggy getting sick sort of threw everything off. And right now she's trying to clear her throat. Poor baby. So, I'll see everybody again. Tomorrow. And until then, God bless and may the Force be with you. Bye.